Hi there. I'm going to do a review for Apollo 13. This movie came out in 1995 and was directed by, I believe, Ron Howard and starred Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, Kevin Bacon, um, and I believe there was, who else was there? Gary Sinise and Ed Harris. A fairly big cast in this movie, mildly large cast. In light of it being the launch of the new rocket going to the moon, I think I was going to talk about this movie. This movie is, of course, based on true events, settling around the ill-fated mission of Apollo 13 in April of 1970. And it could be considered like one of those movies that I think it's considered one of the most accurate interpretations of real events, although I'm not sure. I think there might be a movie or two that's ahead of it in this regard. But nonetheless, this movie is considered very accurate, very well done in terms of accuracy. It's got pretty much everything going for it. Um, the accent is pretty well known. Pretty much, well, I guess not that well known. Probably not that well known outside of the space program. A lot of people do know about it though. Basically, this is the more or less the third mission to the moon, and of course, it's taking it's of course the whole subplot, the whole plotting is that this is all the lead up. This is all the training. More or less, we find out that one of the crew members for the one crew has been changed out, so of course Jim Lovell gets the new crew to become part of the crew, and so we gotta end up with Ken Mattingly, Jim Lovell, and Fred Hayes on this mission. Now, they were training for quite a few months, and of course everything's looking good until it's revealed that somebody has caught measles, and the result is that they all have to be might have to undergo a crew rotation. Nonetheless, to find out that one of the crew hasn't had the measles. Ken Mattingly hasn't had the measles, so the result is they have to do a switch out of the crew. So they put in Jack Swigert, played by Kevin Bacon. And of course, I don't think this actually caused much problem in the actual reality. This caused a minor drama in the movie, because they had to have a little bit of drama. But nonetheless, there was not. I think the movie did contain a little bit more drama than it needed to contain. It's all about the ill-fated mission, so how much drama does it need? Nonetheless, they're all training up, and of course they have the launch. They go through the drama of the launch. But nonetheless, they take off, and it's all good. Although this mission here is the discovery that apparently the public and the cable companies, the TV broadcast companies, apparently are, for some reason, have lost interest in this mission. So I'm not entirely sure why, because it's only been two missions. It's like the public, for some reason, the public got bored. Not entirely sure why they got bored, but they did. It doesn't make any actual sense when you think about it. But nonetheless, they get the new Apollo 13 going. But of course, they go through the TV broadcast, and then when that one Jack Swigert's asked to stir the oxygen tank, of course the problem starts, because this oxygen tank had a flaw, and therefore it sparked and it blew. And the result is that it blew the whole panel out from the side of the service module. There's three modules. There's the service module, which contains more or less the return. It's got some of the service features for the command module, but also a big part of it is just it's the big rocket for getting them back home from the moon, more or less. They need it to get back home from the moon. And then they got the command module, which is pretty much just a re-entry device. place that houses the astronauts, allows them to live for a couple of days in space. And then you got the lunar module. I think this one was called Aquarius. Nonetheless, this was the whole project, and nonetheless, this movie came out in 1995. It's a relatively good-looking movie. I think even today it still holds up perfectly well. But I think there's a reason for that, because in this time period there was a lot of effort to use practical effects. And the thing is about practical effects is that unlike visual effects on the computer, CGI visual effects, practical effects, ironically back in these days, they were still learning how to light CGI. CGI was suffering from some problems. Now there's some movies that do a fairly good job with CGI. The problem was it's a little bit too early in the game for CGI. CGI was good enough for bolstering scenes, but it wasn't so good for making scenes. Nonetheless, practical effects, you don't have to light practical effects. You don't have to figure out how to light them. You just point the light at them and get the right way in order to show your shot, and nonetheless it works. Whereas when it comes to computer graphic imagery, it becomes a bit of a problem, because you have to actually tell the computers had to be told what the lighting should look like. It wasn't automatic. It required a lot of time and a lot of effort to program the lighting systems to work right. And it becomes a bit of a problem for CGI nowadays, even, is that they can't get for some reason the lighting isn't always done right. But nonetheless, in this movie, everything looks really good. I mean, it's all passable. It all looks good. Remember, everything you're looking at is more or less CGI and more or less and practical effects. I would say with the camera, I would say that they were using a little bit of motion controlled cameras for the spacecraft, because I think those are all model miniature spacecraft. Nonetheless, of course, these guys get all the way to the moon. They can't actually get to the moon. There's all kinds of problems coming up with this, because of course the original plan was to go to the moon and run the trajectory back. But now they got to figure out how they're going to make oxygen and electricity last. Because of course, electricity wise, they only have so much fuel on board in order to generate electricity. And of course that creates a problem, because you got to now figure out how to do electrical equipment. And of course the ship uses a certain amount of electrical power. The result is that they go through a little bit of trouble trying to figure out how the setup works. Another thing that comes up is the fact that the carbon dioxide filters on board the LEM weren't designed for 3 people, they were designed for 2, and so therefore they have to figure out a way to make that filter work for 3 people. And they did figure that out. They figured out a lot of things. More or less, they had to figure out a lot of things, because most of the time these missions were going well, and therefore they didn't really have to do much for actual problem solving. But in this movie, there's a lot of problem solving going on, because they have to figure out now how to make. They have to realize that now you don't have the energy source. Because the biggest problem is that when the oxygen blew, they tried to actually snuff off the fuel cells. The fuel cells themselves are running, but the actual valves for letting them through were not working. So they had to shut 2 of their fuel cells off in order to stop a leak. But it ended up not working. It ended up turning out that didn't stop the leak at all, so it didn't mean anything. The biggest problem is the moment they shut off the fuel cells, they lose the mission, and that's what the biggest problem is. So nonetheless, they get to the moon, they do the orbit around. And other problems arise, because of course they keep running shallow on the trip. They try to figure out why they're running shallow, and it turns out because of course they haven't got moon rocks, they're running shallow. They even do a burn on that one in order to get back into somewhat proper trajectory. Nonetheless, it's actually quite interesting that in the real world, the astronauts were far more knowledgeable than they are in the movie. In the movie, it seems like a lot of mission control. I think they had to make it so that the mission control was more involved in the mission than what is showing here. or what it's showing in the real world. Because in this one, they had to act like the astronauts weren't entirely decision makers. They were sort of just, we got trained to fly it. We didn't get trained to do all this thought process. But nonetheless, I think overall it was fine. It worked out. They do get back, and of course, the thing is about this is that they also come up with another question, the heat shield. And of course, what happened when the explosion happened, the panel blew out, and of course they realized that the damage was already up to the heat shield. So now they have a question about what their heat shield looks like. They don't know. So so now they have a question on heat shield. But nonetheless, it all worked out in the end. The parachutes worked out. The heat shield worked. Everything worked out. I think the newest mission, of course, is similar to this mission. Only this one wasn't purposely the idea of flying around the moon at a certain distance. Artemis 2 flew around the moon a little bit further because, of course, they wanted to go for some record of sorts. Nonetheless, this mission here, yeah, it worked out. They got back. Yeah, it didn't seem to affect the actual missions. There was still quite a few missions left. There was 4 more missions to go before the missions got canceled, and that worked out. But it's a lot of curious stuff here in this movie, because there's a lot of little things they got to remember, because they can't go by what they've been going by before. Because before they all had the ability to just do things. Now they're like, well, we can't just do that. We have to do something else. So nonetheless, it all worked out in the end. It was good. It's a good movie. It's not perfect. It's pretty much one of the better documentary type movies you can have. I don't think they could stray much from the original story, because so I think it ends up working out pretty well. But yeah, other than a little subplot involving Jack Swigert, because of course Jack Swigert was not originally on part of the mission crew. He was the backup, so he gets put in position of flying the thing. And of course it was because he was the one who stirred the tanks that ignited the blow. But it turned out it wasn't his fault at all. I'm pretty sure he read the gauge in real life. I'm pretty sure he did read the oxygen tank in real life. But in the movie, they had to have a little bit of drama introduced with him being there and why, and the fact that he wasn't quite up to par. But nonetheless, I think in the real world, he actually more or less was fine. Nonetheless, I think it was a fine movie. One of the best movies ever. So, yeah, there it is. Okay.